Hey, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Happy Thursday, or we like to say Friday Eve. It's the end of the week almost. So hope everyone's getting ready to enjoy their weekend. But I got a great show, another great guest lined up. So let's get it. All right, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Like I said, happy Friday Eve. Hope everyone's enjoying the week and ready for the weekend. You can follow the show on all the podcast platforms, wherever you consume podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We're on Spreaker. We are on BS3 Network, BS3TVLive.com, BS3 Network Roku channel. Again, like you said, if you can consume it however you consume your podcast. You can follow it there. You can also follow me on all the platforms, social media platforms, where we're going to get into a lot of discussion about broadcasting and podcasting and social media and all that with my next guest. But you can follow me on all the platforms: Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as well. All right, well, let me bring in my guest. I am very excited to have this guest on, and it's our first time on the show. She does a little bit of everything too. Like, she has, her own podcast as well, and also broadcasting, and yeah, just like I said, a little bit of everything. She's the host of the BTS with Taylor Begley. She's also, like I said, a reporter, broadcaster. So we're going to get into a little bit of everything. So Taylor, welcome to the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Courtney, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk about all of that. I mean, I feel like the media industry has so much going on at all times. So yeah, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, sports reporter, host, podcast host, UConn alum as well. We're going to get into all that. And
go Huskies.
Yeah, go Huskies. Right. So looking forward to chatting with you. And again, thank you for the time. And I really appreciate it. I'm glad, like I said, we connected. We were talking before we started recording and about the connection and networking, how important it is. So we'll
totally.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. But first question I always ask my first time guest, who is Taylor Begley and how did you get into sports?
That's a great question. So I guess I've always loved sports my entire life. When I think back, grew up a gymnast and cheerleader, so an athlete doing sports by myself, and then really just loved like watching sports with, whether it was my dad or honestly just by myself. Like I would watch gymnastics with my mom, football with my dad. I'd watch baseball by myself sometimes. And I really just got into it, I think, because of the stories. Yeah. But at the heart of like who I am, I would say, has always been a storyteller. Like I sometimes have told this story, but as a kid, I used to, instead of like playing outside, well, I did that too, but I would sit in my room and I would just write stories. I'd write books, like mini books, and give them to my family members. And I just always loved like creating characters and telling stories about life. And I think that's the coolest part about sports, is that obviously it's super exciting with the action of sports, but the stories that are behind it, these characters, these figures within sports, where the stories translate so much to life and can really make such a great impact. So I think all of that together, being a natural storyteller, communicator at heart, I've always loved public speaking as well. I've always loved writing. And then also just loving sports and the stories behind sports. It all came together in this career of sports media, whatever that looks like, whether that's sideline reporting, whether that's hosting a studio show, whether that's hosting a podcast. I feel like the common thread for me has always been the storytelling aspect of it.
Okay, yeah, and I love that too, because I agree. I think storytelling is very important, and we don't see enough of it. I don't think either, with the storytelling, because it's great to see the on court, on field performances, but it's those stories behind the scenes, behind, the behind the camera, the behind all those things. And I know that you do a lot of that too, where getting the inside of those stories of the
Mhm.
athlete, the coaches, or anything like that. So we'll dive a little bit more into that. But you said something about public speaking and writing, and that it's funny how that all intertwined. Talk a little bit about that, a little bit more about how much that has intertwined into where you are today.
Yeah, I think media nowadays is so multi-platform focused.
Hmm.
So you and multi-skilled that you really do, in order to be, I would say, like super successful and to have longevity, is to be
Right.
able to be adaptable to different platforms and be able to create content for different platforms, whether that means you have to create video content, whether that's, your editing skills in terms of video, whether that's your writing skills for a website or even your writing skills for television and how that's different. And I think, I went to UConn undergrad and got a great foundation in communications and journalism there. And then I went to USC for my master's in journalism. And one of the heavy focuses at USC in that master's program was getting a multimedia degree. So you would go into the media center and one day you would be responsible for covering a story for the website. So you'd be writing a
Right.
story. The next day you might be doing a television package. So you'd be shooting and editing and doing a stand up on camera and putting it all together for TV. And then another day you might be podcasting and they have a podcast studio. Another day
Mm.
you might be just there covering something for social media. So you'd be tweeting and you'd be getting videos for Instagram stories and things like that. So I think to be able to um combine it all, but like keep storytelling at the heart. Like know what your story is, but also know, okay, what do the consumers want on each of these platforms? What works
Mhm.
best for each of these platforms? And how can I keep the same heart of the story, but do it a little differently for each platform so that it's also unique, even if you're telling the same story, to tell it in a way that is best for that specific platform. So, like, the more skills I think in media, the more you have, the better. Yeah. So, I've really just tried to, I've been lucky in terms of always enjoying all aspects. I know some
Mhm.
people don't, some people are writers and they don't like to be on camera or they don't
Right.
like, video content and things like that. And not that you always have to be on camera. There are plenty of people who stay behind the camera their entire careers and have super
Yeah.
successful careers. But I think being able to be adaptable to the different kinds of content, and be able to do a little bit of everything and understand everything is super beneficial.
Very, very much so. And I think a lot of important things you said about using different platforms of like say social media, for instance, and Instagram and TikTok, they're all different,
Mhm.
and being able to adapt to each one or whatever your strength is to one or the other, I think is very important, especially in what we both like to do
Yeah.
is like podcasting and social media as well. You talked a little bit about I've seen you covered quite a few things, quite a few events, big events, games, and things like that. Talk about the preparation. You said it shows your versatility,
Mhm.
hosting, or you said podcasting, and things like that. But talk about the preparation of some of the events and games, like a day to day type of thing for those that want to get into the business too. But just to see, and I know everybody's preparation is different, but I love to hear what your
Yeah.
preparation is like.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's different depending on what exactly I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like if I'm hosting a 30-minute show versus sideline reporting for a game versus reporting in a newscast or something, it's going to look a little bit different. I would say I'll kind of break down a little bit of each one, but when I was in my full-time job as a sports anchor and reporter in Rhode Island, I was there for 3 years. So I was when you're in your third year, you have background knowledge of the team
Mm-hmm.
you've been covering just in your memory bank. So that's
Right.
already, you're starting from a better place. So it's obviously harder when you go into covering a team or covering a sport from the very beginning and you kind of have to get yourself acquainted up front. So I would say like the preparation is definitely heaviest at the beginning when you're first starting to cover a specific team or a league or getting into a new area, whatever that may be, just to make sure that you have a background knowledge. And I would say, like, when I first got my job on the East Coast, I had been in California. So I was, doing Dodger highlights and Lakers highlights every night and going to those games, USC. And so to then transition to New England, which I'm actually from Connecticut. So I was very familiar with like the history of a lot of these teams. I was a fan of a lot of these teams growing up. So that was definitely a blessing that maybe not everyone has. Like if I was going to, say, Chicago or Pittsburgh or somewhere where I don't necessarily have like that personal connection to the area, it would be a little bit more difficult. And it would just be a little bit more of catching up front. But I would say, like, as soon as I got that job, we were about to go into football season. So everything I consumed was about the Patriots. I was listening to every podcast. I was reading as many articles as I could from the people that are there covering it every single day to kind of get myself up to speed. And I would say, like, if it's an organization where you're not as familiar with the history, definitely make sure that you're getting familiar with the history of a franchise. Like if you hadn't been following football for that long and you go to cover the Patriots and you don't know who Tom Brady is, you need to, I would hope that someone getting hired to cover
right.
But even just like the history of big games that, those teams have played in and, where the franchise came from and, when Bill Belichick got hired, when he got fired, all of these kinds of things. Just making sure that you had the important stuff kind of down pat. And then when it comes to like your day-to-day coverage, as you go along, you're going to just know things from being there every single day. So the preparation is kind of just you being there. But I would say, like, definitely trying to find storylines to differentiate whether it be your reporting or even like one day to another, because if you're covering every day of training camp, like you want each day to provide something new. So getting creative with your storylines. Sometimes in local news, I would be on camera or I would have a story on Patriots training camp that would air at 5:00 and at 6. So I wanted to make those two different stories so that, people who saw at 5 were going to see something different at 6.
Right.
So I think being able to find the storylines there. I would say when it comes to like hosting longer form shows, I've done ones that are scripted. So that's more of like you're able to like look stuff up as you're writing and all of that. But when the Celtics won the championship, I did a 90-minute show that was completely unscripted. So the days before, like knowing we were going to do that show leading up to the parade day, I was just making notes. I was first understanding, okay, what is this? What is the structure of this show? So the show is going to be, we have live pictures of the Celtics parade boats, the duck boats and everything as they come through. Is going to be on these boats? If we get a live picture of a certain player, what am I going to be saying about that player? So I essentially just like made a whole guide of like, Jason Tatum, a bunch of bullet points about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, a bunch of bullet points.
Yeah.
And so every single person that could potentially come up, even from like the top of the roster from Jaylen and Jason down to, the guys on the bench. If something comes up about like, oh, this guy, they just drafted him or whatever it is, might be great for the future, to the coaches, to, former teams. Like I know there was like the 2008 team was there with them. And so with those guys to have something to say when those guys came on camera. So just having all these notes of bullet points to refer to when something would come up so that I was able to talk about it and I had different storylines. And I would say when you're looking to make those notes, you want to have stuff that's relevant and obviously that's interesting, but you also like, you can have a mix. You can have some like, okay, here's the stats that Jason Tatum had in this specific game or his performance. But then you could also have like some of the behind the scenes storylines of, that he was doubted for so many years. And, Jason and Jaylen didn't know there were these storylines of them. Can they play together? He ended up having this shirt from I think it was his Jordan brand or Nike campaign that said, "Don't stop disbelieving," I believe it was. And so to be able to play into kind of that storyline of the like hug with his mom after the game and add some of that human part of it all.
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about your own experience covering it and what it was like right after the game. So there's that kind of coverage. And then you have, just making sure that you're on top of all the teams that you cover throughout the year if big things are going on, but you kind of dive into the specific teams that are in season more heavily. So like in the fall, you're heavily going into the Patriots. And then in the winter, it's, Celtics and Bruins and Providence College basketball. And then, the Red Sox opening day comes around and you're more heavy in that. But then when it comes to like sideline reporting, you get a lot of background information that you do through your own research and statistics and things that you can find, media guides, and things like that. But you get a lot of information from production meetings, which is one of the reasons why I love sideline reporting, is because you get the exclusive access as the broadcast crew to talk to coaches and players beforehand. So when you're in local, a lot of times, you're in media scrums or press conferences where everybody's getting the same questions and answers with coaches and players. And so, yes, you're going to put it together in your own unique way, but everybody has access to the same information. Where with sideline, or if you're on a broadcast as like play-by-play or an analyst, you are in these production meetings with the coaches and players and things like that, just yourselves. So you're able to ask specific questions and get storylines that are unique. So I think for that, it's just about doing the research beforehand so that you have good questions, but also being open to what you might get from the people that you're talking to. And when you're covering a new sport, it's kind of the same thing, just like diving into everything that you might need to know about the team, how they've been doing, the league, how it operates, the rules of this specific sport. Like I've talked about even, I covered the Bruins and then I covered women's college hockey, and like the rules are even, they're different, still hockey different, So making sure that depending on what you're covering, that you're brushed up on every little thing that could come up. And sometimes, it takes time to figure out what works for you. I've even done flashcards before where once I do my notes, I put, certain things on flashcards and then, say a particular player's name on a flashcard and then see and list all the bullet points on the back and see how much I can say as if something came up in a game and I just had to talk about that player on the sideline. So that's been helpful for me because that works for me. Some people may not like that. They may just like prefer to have an outline or notes. But I do kind of like a mix of both. I like to kind of put myself on the spot because when you're on air, you are on the spot. So you want to be able to, say something off the top, off the cuff, and to be able to articulate it well. So I think if I've practiced leading up where I do those flashcards and I'm able to, read a player's name or read anything, some kind of like keyword that will spark a conversation or a storyline, I like to do that. So that was a very long-winded answer.
Oh no, I love it.
A little bit of everything.
No, I love that. I just you pull back the curtain, and that's why I left that question like an open question. So I love that you broke it down. I could tell we're almost kind of similar. We just love those insider type of things, and it just makes it more fun to do that, the preparation and things like that. But we got a couple of comments here in the chat. We got Nathan Ramasandra from Nathan Sports for us. He said Taylor is amazing.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. He said you're one of his great friends. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine too. And he just says he said your podcast, we'll get into that, is awesome, epic, and legendary. He said so. Yeah. Thanks for always. He's a loyal listener as well. For sure. And I just like I said, I just love how, like I said, you broke that down. And like I said, you kind of you've done like a lot and everything too. Just you said sideline reporting, said at the top of the show, sideline reporting and podcasting and sports anchoring and sports director as well. So it just shows like how much the more the more you can do. I guess it's very beneficial in this type of career. So for sure. You kind of answered my next question, but I was going to say, what are some of your favorite or more impactful stories you've covered or events that you covered? So you said Celtics, you saw the championship run as well. You covered that and others. So any other thing that was impactful on one of your favorite stories or events that you covered?
Yeah, I would definitely say, the whole Celtics championship run was
Mm,
super cool just because, I mean, the Celtics are such a historic franchise.
yeah,
Um, and Boston is such an amazing sports city where people care so much about the team and the team's
right.
success. And really just like a team of great guys, like such good people behind the athletes. So it was really cool and especially because of where I grew up and everything, to be able to cover that. But there's been so many things. I mean, right around the same time of the NBA Finals was covering Tom Brady's Hall of Fame induction, the Patriots
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, which
Mm,
was like nothing I've ever covered before. It was kind of a mix of like sports and entertainment because we started on like a red carpet that was in the back of the stadium where everybody was coming in, all these former players, his family, himself, everyone's just walking down this red carpet on their way into the stadium. And then we covered the whole induction ceremony and everything. And it was just really cool because I think when it comes to like sports, there's a lot of like, when it's a game, there's highs and lows and positives and negatives.
yeah.
And you never kind of know how it's going to turn out. But this was something where it was like, it was all happy. It was all positive. It was all joy. It was all like great stories. It was all celebration versus like the ups and downs of a roller coaster of
Yeah.
covering a game, I guess.
Of a season. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
the game. So yeah, that was super cool because I grew up a Patriots fan, grew up a huge Tom Brady fan. So to be able to cover that moment and see a lot of the players that I grew up watching come through and talk about Tom and everything, that was really, really cool. And then I would say another really cool thing that I covered was the Army Navy game
Mm,
that
yeah.
happened to be at Gillette Stadium while I was working that job. And so I was able to cover that. And that was just a super cool and unique experience. Just such like I don't know, there's so much pride behind
Yeah.
that event. And it's just really cool because, in a way, even though the two teams are competing, like I think there is a lot of like uh, joint like togetherness, I guess,
Hmm.
amongst both sides because you want to win, but you also appreciate what the other side is doing. It's like bigger than the sport, like they're doing something and they stand for something that's bigger than just football. So that was a really cool experience as well. And the stands were packed. It was so much like pageantry to go along with it. It was
Right.
very exciting. But those are the couple things that first come to mind for me.
Yeah, those are the big events as well. You said Tom Brady's, Hall of Fame. That in itself is amazing. I mean, the greatest of all time. And you said you're a Patriots fan, so you got to see championships on top of championships on top of championships
Yeah.
on top of that. And just at that time they were the winning organization from the Brady to Belichick that era
Yeah.
in itself. Hopefully they'll be able to get back on track with
Yeah.
Drake May. And it seems like they're going to try to get in that right direction. But he said Celtics run, and I saw some of your coverage that you did with the Celtics championship run, and talking about the Celtics, and yeah, it seems like the team is starting to, they're breaking it up a little bit. I know some injuries, especially with
Yeah.
Tatum and everything. Let's get some headlines now. I might as well. I was going to play for the end, but kind of talked about it. But what do you think of the Celtics, their direction they're going into now with, uh, Drew Holiday traded and Porzingis, and they broke up that championship team. Al Horford may be retiring
Yeah.
as well. There's talk about that. And then it's just they're 1 year removed from that championship.
Mhm.
So, but Tatum's out probably for the whole season next year. But in your perspective, what do you think of the Celtics and what they're doing heading into this next season?
It's crazy how things change, right?
Yeah,
Like at one
right.
moment going into that Knicks series, you think, oh, they're going to repeat. Like
Yeah, yes.
my uncle's a Knicks season ticket holder, and
Mhm.
he was like, they're lucky to get to a game 5, thinking the Knicks were going to get swept.
Yeah,
Uh, and obviously didn't go that way. But it's crazy because as soon as, the injury happened to Tatum, it was kind of like, okay, it's over. Like this
yeah,
iteration of the Celtics, this era is over because it was already going to be questionable heading into the offseason just with the money and the amount of money
Yes.
that they were,
Right.
having to pay for guys. But especially with that, when, your best player is now going to miss a year, it's hard to have such an expensive roster going into a year where, you're kind of in a little bit of a downward swing just because of the nature of the injury. So it was kind of one of those things where you knew it was going to happen. You were hoping they could maybe, get one more before the band kind of got all broken up. And it's sad, I think, to see, it's kind of bittersweet because you knew it was going to happen, but you get like nostalgic about what they were able to do together. And really, I mean, Kristaps and Drew were what put them over the edge. They were on the verge for so many years of winning a championship, and those two guys come in and really turn them into this championship team, and they just rolled through the playoffs last year and were so dominant. And obviously it's hard, like the start of the Knicks series, Tatum wasn't even hurt yet and they were already down 0-2. So it just goes to show like how hard it is to repeat and how hard it is to win a championship. While they made it look easy the year before, it is not easy. But I know that I have a strong feeling. I shouldn't say I know, but I have a strong feeling that the Celtics will be back with at least Tatum, hopefully Tatum and Brown, to win another championship sometime in the future, because they're still so young. It feels like they've been around forever, but they are still so young. They're, 27 and 28, 26, 27, whatever it is. But yeah, I think it kind of had to happen. And it's a little bit of, it's a little bit jarring just because of, 2 weeks ago or a month ago, we were talking about repeating as champions, and now we're talking about a rebuild and giving everybody away. But I think you just, as Celtics fans, you just be grateful for the fact that you were able to win it and you had such a great run last year.
Yeah, and that, very well said. And that run of them getting close, with Tatum and Brown, and you talked about it a little bit, will they be able to play together and can they win together, I should say. And they had made it to conference finals, and then the whole Kyrie era, you had that didn't work out, but then they were able to, like, okay, Tatum came into his own, Jaylen Brown came into his own, and he said last year's run, and even heading into this season, I was with you. I agree. I thought, like, yeah, they're gonna win it again. They're gonna at least get to the finals again. Right. It just depends on who they were going to go against. OKC, Denver, Houston, Golden State, whoever it was. But I had a feeling the Celtics were going to repeat, just because of, as long as they were healthy, they were going to repeat. Yeah. So when he said, you're right, when it was the Celtics and Knicks, I figured, yeah, it could be 5, the gentleman's suite, maybe 6 at the time. But then when they got down 0-2 and they blew that fourth quarter leads, and I still had like, okay, Celtics are still gonna pull this out. They're gonna pull this series out.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I figured like they'll pull this out, and then the Tatum injury with the Achilles, I was like, okay, this is, even that game, it still felt like the Celtics were gonna win the series. It's like they'll go to 7, they'll go back to Boston, they'll win the series. And then they'll beat Indiana at the time too, but then Indiana had a great year, so that was no guarantee either. But the Celtics just felt like they were the stronger team as well. But he said health issues with Porzingis, that lingering sickness he had. Who knows what that was? They still really don't know, and so there was a lot of different things that was happening too. And then the Tatum injury really, put them and said, okay, that's it. And then, as you said, there was going to be changes, but felt like you said, I was with you. Do you maybe get 2 of the next 3 years or so? But you're right. Maybe Tatum when he comes back, hopefully comes back, still the same player or better. And hopefully Brown's still there too, because there was rumors about them maybe getting traded, and that's a big contract to move. But we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to be a full rebuild, but they talk about now maybe moving Anthony Simons as well. So we'll see what the Celtics look like heading into this next season.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. I think, if they hadn't gone down 0-2, if they had been up 2-0, I think even with the Tatum injury, they probably would have won that series.
Right.
And they should have gone up 2-0. That's what's crazy, is they were with double-digit leads.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just was, it was a really sad way to go out too, to end
Yeah.
an era that had so much success,
Mm-hmm.
with really just a poor performance against the Knicks, and then a horrible injury to Jason Tatum, and
Right.
then just getting completely broken up. But such is sports, I guess.
That is
Yeah,
sports. Yes.
yeah,
That is
can't plan
sports.
anything.
You can't win. No, yeah, right, right. And you said you've seen championships throughout your life, and I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm just hanging on to okay. They brought they lost a lot on defense, but
Yeah.
but they regrouped. They brought 10 of their 11 starters on the offensive side. I'm just holding on, like, okay, they're their favorites to maybe go again and win it again. So I'm just hanging on to couple more years, just a few years
Yeah.
of that, but we'll see how
Yeah.
that goes. But so UConn alum,
Mhm.
another great successful organization,
Oh yeah.
and everything too. But I want to talk about UConn women. Like,
Yeah.
so many Hall of Famers, so many some of the best players. If you had to pick, no, it's probably hard. I'm gonna put you on the
Oh
spot. I
God.
know this is one of the
So
questions.
hard. I know.
Yeah, but if you had to pick like your top, we'll go five. We don't have to, you don't pick a starting five or anything, but if you had to pick your
Okay.
5 players, UConn women players, who would it be? Your top 5?
Okay.
That's
Diane.
gonna be hard.
Diane
Okay.
is
DT.
DT is
Okay.
number 1.
Okay.
I love Paige, so I'm gonna go Paige in there.
Yep.
Gotta have Maya Moore.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, two more. Oh gosh, so hard.
I know. I put you on the spot. I do. I had to put you on the spot on this one.
You gotta go Stewie.
Oh, yes.
4.
Ooh.
And she was there when I was there, so
Yeah.
gotta
Right.
go Stewie. Man. Oh gosh.
That's a team in itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dominant team.
I love. Oh, this is so hard. I feel. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna go Rebecca Lobo because she started all.
Okay.
I feel like
All
you
right.
have to go with. I mean, I love Sue Bird too, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sue Bird.
I know.
Swing Cash. Man, they had so many.
I
They
know.
had so many. But no, I like
So,
that. No, yeah, it's an interesting thing. People when they talk about UConn alum and you did the star quality of the stars that they continue to have and continue to keep pushing forward with. I think
harder.
it is right.
Like Sarah Strong. Like by the end of her career,
they're strong. Yeah, for sure.
Doing,
yeah. Yeah, right. And you're right. And yes, I think some people, see Rebecca Lobo, the broadcaster now, but it's like she was a UConn great too. The UConn great. Yes, but I love that. Oh man, that'd have been hard for me too. I don't know who I would have left out. I mean, like you said, Maya Moore, and I probably would have added Sue Bird for sure, DT for sure, Paige. Wow, yeah, that's a hard one.
It's really hard.
And I love Twin Cash. It's like,
I know.
It was so many.
Yeah, and I mean, you can probably make arguments for everybody. I mean, maybe mine is like Stewie was there when I was there, but you can't really argue. I mean, she was insane. Yeah. DT is like the GOAT, and she was, when I was growing up, like as a kid in Connecticut, she was it. I mean, she was. I mean, I feel like she really took them from, well, she did. Like, they were a program that had won, 2 championships, and she made them a dynasty. Right. And I mean, but I love Sue Bird too. Yeah, I feel like the fifth one is like Sue and Rebecca, if I could join them together. But and then Maya Moore is just, I mean, Maya Moore. So.
Yeah, there's Maya Moore, right?
Yeah,
Maya Moore.
Paige's whole story, like I love, like them not having the success in these years, and then her bringing a championship back. I mean, there's just so many. It's so good. But
yes, it's they've had so many great players. Like I said, Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers. It's tremendous how much Gino Auriemma and that pipeline of athletes that it continues to keep getting. It continues to keep, strong in every way. Yeah, you said Tina Charles. I'm just going through a list here of all time. And Jen Rosati. Wow, that's a blast from the past for sure. Mariah Jefferson. I mean, I
loved Mariah Jefferson.
Yeah.
She was there when I was there too. I loved her. Yeah. She was so good.
Nafisa Collier, who's going to be the MVP,
Yep.
probably this season. Yeah, I mean, there's you would, I put you on the spot with that one.
I mean,
Stephanie
underrated
Dawson, yeah,
even is Nika Mule and the
Nikki
defense that
Mule,
she played
yeah,
on Caitlin Clark in
yeah,
that Final
yes,
Four game. Like,
hmm
just for
last
that,
season, yeah.
she's,
Oh,
you know,
wow,
legendary to me.
legendary.
Um,
Renee Montgomery,
yeah,
yeah, Nikisha Say. I mean, the list we could go on and on and on.
literally.
I'm sure you have like so many other names. Gabby Williams, who's an
Yeah,
all-star this year. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, for sure. This was no that they got so much talent. They continue to
yeah.
have so much talent
And
as well.
honestly, I feel like I was with them winning this year too. I was just as happy for Gino because I feel like there was a lot of that conversation of, okay, is he too old? Has he kind of like
Is he going to
lost his
retire?
message?
Yeah.
Yeah, like is his
hmm
message not getting through? And
Right.
I mean, when you really look at it, they were just decimated with injuries for so many years.
Yes.
And obviously, like, more parity and other teams becoming better over the years, but I mean, UConn will still always be a powerhouse. And
Always. Always.
yeah, it's actually insane what they've been able to do and what Gino's been able to do. And I just love the whole story of how it all came together this year.
Yeah, it was a great. I mean, really good. I and interesting. I picked them to win the whole thing. I just said it's if they stay healthy, and it's and they did it. They put it
Yeah.
together, and I was so happy for Gino, so very happy for Paige, because she was there was so much there was pressure. Unfortunately, there was just pressure on her to okay, can she win? Is she going to get
Yeah.
into that? I mean, her career would have been. I mean, it would all said and done, still one of the best UConn players ever. But now with a championship on top of that, it just cemented that her UConn legacy even more as well because she came in with that much, so much, I mean, say hype, so much, just how great she was. And then
Yeah.
you said injuries, her persevering through that and really taking the team on her back this season and
Mhm.
say, hey, we're gonna win this whole thing. And the way they just kind of just they kept plugging along. I was like, yeah, they're the best team in the country, especially when they're healthy. And yeah, they stepped it up and they so congrats to at UConn, another winning
Oh,
organization.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. And I would have loved to see them play a healthy USC with Juju.
Yeah, yes.
That's the one thing that I still think UConn would have won and they would have
Me
won
too.
the championship, but I really would have loved to see that matchup with Juju and Paige and
Mhm.
AZ and Sarah Strong,
Yeah,
Kiki, would have been great. But
yeah.
I'm happy that they won, and I'm happy for Paige too, because I mean, she would have been like the Dan Marino of UConn women's basketball, the greatest to ever
Yeah,
win.
yeah, yeah. Right. That's
Not
good.
that
That's
she
a
didn't
good point.
deserve to. It just was like the luck of the draw, kind of. But
Yeah,
it really kind of felt like, you could sense that this was their year and they were taking it
yeah,
seriously,
yep,
to win it for her. And they really just peaked at the right time. They were
yes,
playing so well together at the right time.
yep. They did peak. Yeah, they peaked. They definitely peaked at the right time. And like you said, they played together. They got healthy, and they really put it together. And it was a great season. They blew out South Carolina, another powerhouse organization. Like you said, other teams just gotten better. But yes, it would have been really good to see USC with a healthy Juju and see how that would have worked out. But yeah, great year, great year for Paige, and now she's doing her thing in the W. So
Yeah.
for sure,
Great.
yeah, probably more than likely rookie of the year as well. All right, well, I got a couple more. I mean, I'm loving this conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
we could have definitely, but I just got a couple more before I let you go. Just go back into, like I said, social media, and I know you talked about this on your podcast too, and everything too. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing sports media, social media, uh, journalism, on that, and your thoughts on the future of that as well?
Yeah, we're at such an interesting time, even compared to when I first got into it, because I started in like 2018, 2019, and TikTok wasn't really a thing. And now
Yeah,
TikTok is huge.
yeah,
And I think, with that, it comes along, there are a lot of benefits and some challenges in terms of, I think people will believe anything that they hear on the internet. Which is a challenge to journalism, but it also is, I think, an opportunity for people, for real credible journalists and people with actual platforms and information and skill to rise above and be those trusted voices to gain trust with an audience. And I personally love social media. I think it's really a cool way to connect and to either promote your work or to create, content of itself on social media. And I think it's really cool how there's that connection, that close connection with your audience. I think it's really cool how athletes are able to connect so closely with fans through social media. And you can see different sides of athletes through social media. I love social media personally, and what it's kind of added to the journalism field as a whole. I would say that's also a struggle of maybe some like mainstream media is figuring out how to incorporate social media and whether it be convert to social media or to value, the digital side more than maybe like a TV newscast, because most people are getting their news now from online, whether that be, a link to a website that takes you to a story, or whether that be just content that's organic to the different social media platforms. And I think also just like figuring out how to monetize, because traditionally, like, for example, in local news, like you sell your advertisements for your newscasts, but then how can you monetize on social media and maybe start to verge more into that and compete with some of these platforms that are strictly on social and digital media. Because I think there's a lot of great work. Like, this actually goes back to one of my favorite stories that had nothing to do with something I really covered. But like, I told a story about a high school football player who he had passed away. And this was a couple years prior to when I did the story. And they would give his number to a different kid every Friday night to wear, because they didn't want to let anyone have it full time, but they wanted to do something to honor him.
Right.
And it's stories like that where that could, impact a lot of people. It could be relevant and people could enjoy it, whether you're from that area of that high school or not. And social media allows you to kind of get that out there. But I also think that there are ways that maybe like media, traditional like newspapers or TV stations or broadcast channels, whatever, could be utilizing it a little bit better. And then I also think, the challenge comes with just figuring out like, okay, we're going to follow the people, right? We need to be where the people are. So figuring out how to adapt and what that kind of looks like going forward for journalists, and where to kind of value and where to place your value, where to put your content. It's a very interesting kind of like in between time. A lot of times I think about, when TV first came out and everything had been print prior or radio, and then everyone has to kind of get used to TV. And you would see a lot of journalists that had been writers their whole career have to, adjust and go into TV because that's where the people were. And that's what, people wanted to consume. And I think that that's kind of where we're at with the bridge from traditional to like social digital media right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you hit it on the head too, with national media trying to get used to social media as well, or content creators and things like that. Because I think of track and field. This was probably right before the Olympics, so or not this past, but and how there was a lot of track and field content creators who were really getting the athletes trusted them. They trusted them more than the national media, and the national media, like the NBCs and things, they didn't like that. And it's like, hey, we all can win. Like, you can all benefit from each other, because the content creators they're getting the stories from the athletes, and the athletes are more willing to share more, because I'm not saying they care more, but they're not, antagonizing them, or they're not, giving them that, asking them,
it's more casual.
Yeah, casual conversation. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and that was a big thing. And the national media was, but now I think they call it the mix zone. They called it. Now they have that, where they have the content creators who are getting those big stories too, alongside with the national media. So it's like, yeah, they're here. I mean, we're not going anywhere. They're the ones that we do this for,
Yeah.
as social media content creators, whatever you want to call it. It's all here now. So yeah, it's not going anywhere. And it keeps. I'm with you. I like social media too. Yes, it has its good moments, it has its bad moments, but when you could use it, as you said, to promote or to share, to network, kind of like what we did, to meet each other as well, virtually and things like that. Yeah, I think it has its benefits for sure.
Yeah. And I think, when it comes to the content creators and journalists and things like that, that's why I feel like it's so important for journalists to embrace social media,
Yeah.
um, and have a presence there, because that is part of and allows you to tell a greater story, and get some of those opportunities to have the access. Because I think, even you'll see sometimes content creators being used for red carpets or interviewing and things like
Right.
that, where, if you have both, you're kind of like dynamite. I mean, you have the
Yeah.
content creator side of it, that people that they desire to be able to get the social content, but you also have the interview skills to be able to get even better interviews, because sometimes what
Mm.
you see too is like content creators not being able to master the art of the interview, because it is really an art that journalists
Yeah.
have.
Yes. Hmm.
So if you can kind of do a little bit of both, I think in this new landscape where social media is so important, I think if you have the interview skills and you also and hosting skills and things like that, but you also have the content creator skills, I think that you would be like a huge, a huge asset. And you're would be really helpful to your career. So that's something that I've, tried to incorporate and have been trying to do myself.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very important, especially if you want to get into this space, to
Mhm.
have the social media, had to be savvy on the social media side, because there's and then plus there's a lot of jobs. There are a lot of jobs that I see all the time on like LinkedIn, where they're looking for a social media manager, or they're looking for someone that's that could be that could that's very well versed in content like that with social media and all aspects of it, as you said earlier. To be savvy in all social media and use it to your advantage, and I think that helps with people getting, in certain ways, get a job too. When we know the job market is tough,
Yeah.
either way. You can have all the skills and still it's tough to get it. But no, you're right. It's good to be, I think, well versed in if you're in national media and social media and content creating, as well. So, all right, just got one more. I could have talked to you for hours, but
I know
for
we can do
time,
it.
yeah, we can do a 3 hour again, like you said, just off
Yeah.
the cuff type of thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to gotta get into the podcast, which I enjoy too
I
so
appreciate
much. I
that.
came, I came across it. It was like I'm always looking for a new podcast anyway, and I came across, they said, your page and your podcast
Mhm.
and some of the interviews you've done. I'm like, wow, this, yeah, it's some good, really good stuff. BTS with Taylor Begley. Stories behind the sports we all love, as you said, talking about the stories behind the sports. Talk about how the podcast came about and what it entails. And if anybody that wants to listen, which they should, anybody wants to listen, what they get out of the podcast.
Yeah, so it's very new. It just launched in May.
Yeah.
Just put the eighth episode up. So it's been really fun, really exciting. I've always loved the podcasting platform.
Mhm.
Back to my days at USC when it was really a young segment of the media industry. That was back in like
Right.
2018, when I first kind of started dabbling in podcasting. And I had started, I think, two other podcasts, or I had tried to start two other podcasts.
Yeah.
But it just never felt like I had the concept nailed down to what I wanted it to be. Um, and something that felt like, okay, this is really a brand that I want to build, and this is what I want to pour the effort and energy into. And I feel like this kind of has legs. Like, this is something that I
Yeah.
can do an episode every week and come back to the mantra of the whole podcast, to like the core values of what I want to share. And I'd always loved sports storytelling, sports stories. And when I was in broadcasting, a lot of times I found myself, posting on social like BTS content. So it would be,
Mm.
come BTS with me, like to cover the Celtics game. And I would do like a little vlog of like, okay, here's me like doing my scripts behind the scenes, and here's me walking onto the court and like doing my live shot. And okay, let's go like watch the game, and here's the post game and all that kind of stuff. Or like, this is what it looks like in the back of the studio. And like behind the scenes of whatever it may be that I was covering. And so that's something that I had always kind of naturally done in terms of content. And I think the way that sports media has kind of been, I mean, I know there's obviously a reason, like people love to consume the hot takes and things like that.
Yeah.
And those shows are super popular, but I had always loved the story side of it and the actual impact to like people's lives. Not just like ranting about sports and giving my thoughts. You know, I'll give my thoughts if I'm prompted, but that's not really what I wanted like my contribution to the industry to be, I guess. And so when I was thinking about a podcast, I was really trying to workshop like, okay, what would this be? I thought of the idea of BTS, and then TB was what a lot of the people in the industry would call me.
Right.
So that's why like the cover art is like that. But I think what really like sold it to me, I was listening to a podcast, or I was listening to something. I forget what it was. But it was, you know, I think it was Coach K from Duke talking about how like sports are meant to be or sports media is meant to educate and celebrate, or you know, we want to educate and celebrate about sports. Like that's like, and hearing that, I was like, yes, this is what I want. This is like this is what I feel connected to on being in sports media. I don't necessarily want to be the person that's, you know, ranting about how bad the team played or all of that negativity. And so I thought about it, and I thought, okay, well, what could I do if I didn't have interviews every week, but interviews sometimes? Because I just didn't know if it was feasible to be able to do interviews every single week. And I ended up, what did I look? I was thinking of Crime Junkie. Have you ever heard of that podcast?
Yes.
Okay. So how they like go behind the scenes of, I guess me saying behind the scenes, my own words, but behind the scenes of different cases and things like that. And they do their research and they talk about the case. And I was like, what if I did that about sports? Like, what if I just like did research and talked about different like sports moments in history, almost like a documentary would, but in a weekly podcast where every week people could go and listen about a different story. And really what it's meant to do is to inspire and educate. And so it's more about storytelling behind sports. And some of that includes, you know, I'll talk about my own experience as a reporter. And I really try to like listen to what people have said. And I know a lot of people that follow me are really interested in my own career and the things that I've done and the behind the scenes of the reporting as well. So I've tried to incorporate a little bit of that in it, but it's really just, I would say like sports and lifestyle focused, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, going behind the scenes of stories with the hope of inspiring, impacting the people that are listening who also love sports. So
I enjoy it. I really do. I do. And as you said, new episodes every Wednesday.
Yep.
And you get it on all the podcast platforms.
Yep.
Yep, as well. Okay, yeah. So it's I've enjoyed it. The episodes, and I joined like the clips you put on Instagram as well. Kind of said behind the scenes, as it says behind the scenes with TB, and but you really get behind the scenes. You said of behind the scenes of the sideline reporting. I heard that one, and you did one was that discipline. I think you just recently did that one. About discipline in sports is everything in sports. So yeah, I love like I said, I'm always looking for different podcasts, especially in sports, and really get into it. And you said it talks about the human side of it too, and we talk about that humanization of the athletes or just in general storytelling. And like I said, it's very important when it comes to media and sports and things like that too. So yeah, so keep that podcast going, because I really enjoy it.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you, because it's really been a lot of fun to do. And I really feel purposeful in it. So that's been
Absolutely, for sure. Taylor, this has been it. I've had a great time talking with you, and I really enjoyed this conversation and just getting to know you a little bit and digging deep into a lot of different things. We could have really got into like some of the other sports
Yeah,
topics and things like that. So hopefully we could do this again
sure.
as
Love
well.
that.
When you come on, I always say when you come on the Real Deal more than once, your podcast family now. So, but
Oh,
your
love that.
podcast family anyway, because you're a podcaster as well. So you're
Yeah.
part of the podcast space. But let everyone know where they can follow you, follow your journey, want to reach out, and what you got coming up next in the next. I guess for the rest of the year, if you could do anything you can announce if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. Hoping to continue to build the podcast, get some good guests on the podcast.
Right.
So you can find my podcast on YouTube, it's on Spotify, on Apple, and you can follow the Instagram and the TikTok. It's all BTS with TB or BTS with Taylor Begley. And then my personal Instagram is Taylor M. Begley. TikTok is Tay Beg. So yeah, follow me on any of those platforms. And I am continuing to pick up different sideline reporting opportunities as they come up. I've done a lot of, with college sports. So hoping to continue that. That'll probably, continue in the fall. Right now, it's a little bit of a slow time because
Yeah.
the college year is over. But yeah, really excited about, what the future holds for the podcast and as well as, new broadcast opportunities.
Looking forward to your journey, watching from afar. Um, Many blessings to you and great success as well. And like I said, I'll be in touch and we'll chat. Maybe we'll definitely chat before football season, which is coming up
Yeah.
very shortly. It's
Yeah.
like what July 10th. So
I know.
yeah, football will be here in
It happens
August.
fast.
Looking forward. I'm looking forward to it. I know you are too, college and pro. So,
Yeah.
but Taylor, thank you again. Really appreciate it. I'll have a couple clips of this to share with you, and yeah, it was so much fun talking with you as well. So thanks again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
All
Have a
right. Well, yes, you too. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right, that was Taylor Begley. Really appreciate her. Like I said, she does a lot of content and sideline reporting. She hosts BTS with Taylor Begley. Follow that. Follow her on all the podcast social media platforms as well. So again, another great guest. Really appreciate her taking the time, and thank you again for everyone that tuned in. Really, really always appreciate the support and the comments and the likes and the sharing. Without you guys, this podcast is not possible. So really appreciate it. Until next time, got one more show tomorrow, and looking forward to that and more great guests coming up next week. The show keeps rolling. More great guests. Keep on the lookout. You never know who's going to come on. So really appreciate Alexandra's support and love. So as always, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day, rest of the evening. And as always, be safe, peace. God bless.